Hello there. My name is Shreya Malhotra, and I'm going to be talking about exercises 11.2 to 11.7 on Practice It. So, for 11.2, we're going to explore a method called alternate. And basically, what the question here, or like the scenario that we're solving here, is that we are going to have two lists, and it's basically trying to make another list that creates the list by having numbers from list one and list two. So, let's say if right here, if the first list is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the second list is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, it's going to take the first number from the first list, put it in our third list that we're creating, then take the first number from the second list, put it in the third list that we're creating, then second number from the first list, second number from the second list, third number from the first list, third number from the second list, so on and so forth. And it's going to keep on going until one of the one of the lists ends. Okay, so the way that we're doing this, first we're going to import a few important tools that we're going to need using these two commands right here, import java.util.list and import java.util.array list. And these basically get the essential things that you need in order to execute the code. Over here, this is where we're basically setting our list, right? So we're giving the computer instructions. We're telling them that here, this is list one, this is list two, and make another list called result, and that's basically the one we're going to create through our code. So that's what this is here is doing. It's making that, right? Okay, so this code over here, we're figuring out how big each list is, right? So in size one, so it's saying that size one for the first size, you have to figure out the size of list one, which you figure out through the dot size bracket, which is that's how you basically figure out how big list one is, and you put that inside size one. Then you try figuring out how big list two is, and you put that in size two. Over here, we're creating a third thing that would basically showed like the maximum size that would be made for list three, right? So math.max is figures out like basically that if this list is this big and this list is this big, then when you combine it, this is the maximum size of the third list that is being created, right? Here we're creating a loop. So basically it would go into the first list, and then it would get the contents from that, then it would go into the second list, and it would get the needed contents from that, and then it would just keep on looping like that. That's what that is doing. And then the next line, we're saying that if we still have piece in list one, then you're going to get that piece from the list and add it to the result list. And then it's the same thing here, but with list two. And so basically, it's just gonna see if the list still has a number, and it's gonna go in and it's going to get that number and put that in our result list, right? After all of that is done, we return result, which would basically give us our result list, and that should basically make this scenario work. So when you submit it, you're going to see that all 6 tests are passed. It's just running. Okay, as you can see, we have two lists over here. We have 1, 2 in list number 1 and 3, 4 in list number 2. So what this basically does is takes the first element from list 1, which is 1, and then the first element from list 2, which is 3, and then puts that in the result. Now the computer is going to go back because of hello. So 11.3. Fuck, I said hello. Okay, so we're gonna do 11.3, which is removeInRange. So here, the scenario or the question or basically the blurb is asking us to write a code called removeInRange that accepts 4 parameters: a list of integers, an element value, a starting index, and an ending index. Right? So the method's behavior is to remove all occurrence of the given element that appear in the list between the starting index, which is inclusive, so basically the starting index is included and the ending index, which is exclusive. So, for example, there we have a list. I'm not going to read out all the numbers, but you can see that we have a list, and we're trying to get rid of certain numbers so that when you like run your code, it's going to give us an output of just that instead of all the numbers that are presented out on the screen beforehand. So to start, we're going to import a java.util.list. Since we are working with lists, we're going to need that tool in order to execute our code. Over here, we're basically telling the computer that these are all the things that we're going to be working with, right? So we're going to have a list, we're going to have a value, we're going to have a start index and the end index. As you can see, those are our four parameters, and basically we're just telling the computer that in removeInRange method these things are included, right? Over here, we're basically getting our computer set up, and we're going to tell them that this is like when we clean our list, then it needs to go to the right place, and this is what's helping us determine that, right? So this part checks if the starting point of our cleaning or the start index is less than 0. In our list, the first position is 0, so we don't want to start cleaning from a position before the beginning of the list. Okay, over here we have end index is greater than list size, right? Basically, what that is doing is it's checking if the ending point of our cleaning or the end index is beyond the total number of items in our list. It's like saying, let's not go past the end of our list, right? And over here, we're making sure that our starting point is not the same as or after our ending point. It's like saying to clean up, we need a range, and the starting point should be before the ending point. And that's basically what that piece of code does for us, right? Okay, so over here, we are basically starting a loop, right? We want our code to go back into the list, assess the integers that are in the list, and then see if that should be part of our output, right? So this is how you make the for loop for that, right? Okay, over here, if the list gets I, then the value is to basically if the number basically applies to all of that over here, it's going to take that number and get rid of it, right? That's what our code is doing. That's what the method that we're running is doing. That's what removeInRange does. So if all of that applies, then we're going to take that value and remove it from our list, and the output is basically all the values that did not get removed from the list. So when you submit it, right, it's going to take a while to load, but you can see that all our tests are passed, and it's basically taking this list, right? It's going to go in, the code is going to go in, check if this number should be in this list. It assesses it. Yes, it should be in the list, so it's added into our list. It goes here, checks it, it's in the list because it's supposed to be there. That's what the code does, right? It goes in, checks, it's in the list, goes checks, it's in the list, goes checks, it's in the list. But here, this part does not work with our code. This does not work. This is not one of the elements that we want in our output, which is why it is taken out of the list, and then it moves on, checks the next number, and it just keeps on going like that. That's what the removeInRange method does, and this is how you can code it. All right, so we're going to be doing 11.6. We're going to basically be writing a method called countUnique, which takes a list of integers as a parameter and returns the number of unique integer values in the list. So imagine you have a list of numbers and you want to find out how many different numbers are in that list. It's like counting how many different types of candy you have in your bag, okay? So we're going to look into the code. So these three, basically we're just seeing what, like, basically we're just getting tools in order to execute our code, right? So hash set, list, and set is the three tools or three bag of tools that you're going to need in order to construct through this code, right? We're getting our coding toolbox, and we're telling Java that these are the tools that we're going to need in order to execute our code. Okay, so over here, we're basically telling the computer that we're going to count how many different numbers we have in our list, right? If we're setting our method and we're defining it, to see. We're just basically defining the method, like this is what we're going to be doing. We're telling the computer that um, this is the classes we're going to be using and this is how we're going to execute our thing. The set integer unique set equals new hash set. Basically, it says that it's going to take the numbers from the list and it's going to put all the unique numbers into a different list that we are creating, which is the new hash set. Okay, so the for loop here is basically just setting up our loop, right? It's saying that it's you have to go back into the list, and you're going to check the code and you're going to see if there's any unique numbers, and if there is a unique number, then you're going to add that number into our unique set, which is the new hash set that we created, right? Once that is done, once it's looped, it's going to return unique set. And when you submit that, you see that it's going to go inside, it's going to check for the unique numbers, and whatever the unique number is, the code is basically going to output that for us. So now we're going to be diving into 11.7, which is countCommon. We're going to be writing a method called countNotCommon that takes two lists of integers, and it basically searches both the lists in order to get the same integers from both of them, right? So if we have 373, -1, 2, 3, 7, 2, 15, 15, and we have the second list, -5, 15, 2, -1, 7, 15, 36, here we can say that -1 is the same number in both, 2 is the same here, 15 and 7, right? So to do that, we're going to first import our special toolboxes. We're going to ask Java, we're going to say, okay, here's the tools we need in order to execute our code. And these are the toolboxes that the tools are in. So we're going to import that, right? Over here, we're setting our method, right? Common. And we're going to put our list 1 and list 2. We're just telling the computer, hey, that our method has list 1 and it has list 2. So that's how we're setting that. Here we're going to create two new hash sets, right? We're creating set 1 in order to see like the numbers that are within here, and then set 2 to see the numbers that are in that, right? And the retain all right here basically says that whatever numbers that are in set 1, if they are similar to set 2, then you put them in another list and then you return that, right? So we put basically everything in set 1 that has the same numbers as set 1 and set 2. Does that make sense? Like in the list 1, if there's the same numbers, then and then list 2, if there's the same numbers, the retain all basically just puts all the same numbers together and makes a list out of it, and it's going to return that. So when we submit it, you're going to see that the code works, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, output 1, or 1, 2, 3, 2, then the output is 1 because that's like the same number within the lists.